Even though we've been living on this planet for thousands of years, we're still a long way from discovering everything about it. Sometimes we find something that's been hidden or buried for hundreds or even thousands of years, and changes the way we think about our own history. Here are some truly incredible recent discoveries that have shed fresh light on the past. Those who go digging for buried treasure are used to finding most things in the ground. But Swiss archaeologists were more than a little surprised when they discovered this bronze hand. They asked other experts around the world what it might mean or represent, but none of them knew either. It's been carbon dated back to 2000 BC, but nothing like it from that time period has ever been found. It's too delicately constructed to have been a prosthetic, and nothing about the skeleton or the gold pieces and jewelry found buried with it offer any further clue at all. The best guess of archaeologists is that it's a symbolic replacement for a hand the buried man may have lost during life. In the summer of 2017, archaeologists working in a cave in Barrow Island, Australia, made a discovery that changes everything we know about human habitation in the country. Initially, it was believed that Australia's indigenous population, the Aborigines, settled on the land some 47,000 years ago. However, remnants of charcoal, primitive hunting equipment, and animal remains within the cave pushes that finding back by at least 18,000 years. It was long believed that the arrival of humans on Australia's land was responsible for driving off much of the natural fauna that called it home. Now there's evidence that animal and man lived side by side for thousands of years. It's not always scientists who make incredible discoveries, though. Anybody who spends their time digging in the ground has a chance. That's what happened to miner Sean Funk in Alabama in March 2011. Funk was a veteran miner and had seen plenty of fossils and curiosities in his time, but nothing quite like what made him shut his machinery down that day. Feeling his bucket hit something harder than the surrounding rock, Funk took a closer look and saw what he thought were brown rocks, with a pattern of what felt like stone discs on the back of each one. These weren't rocks, they were dinosaur bones, and Funk had discovered a new kind of dinosaur. The newly christened dinosaur was a huge, armored plant-eating reptile, which had likely been laying in the earth for 110 million years, waiting to be discovered. Usually when fossils are found like this, they've been flattened, but the conditions within the mine kept this nodosaur in almost pristine condition. When we think of stone circles, we usually think of the ancient site of Stonehenge in England. The giant rocks there have laid in formation for thousands of years, and nobody knows how or why they were first put there. Were they a calendar? A temple? A clock? People enjoy speculating about it as much now as they did hundreds of years ago, and we still don't know the answer. Now Kazakhstan are facing the same questions, as they've discovered an ancient stone circle of their very own. Near the town of Aktau, an amateur archaeologist with a metal detector found a silver saddle in 2010. He alerted the professionals, and a full dig was ordered, revealing ancient stone carved with mysterious symbols and pictures. Nobody can be sure of the purpose of the site, but it's believed it was built by the Huns, fleeing the collapse of the Roman Empire some 1,500 years ago. The sea usually gives up its secrets eventually. It just takes a while. In the case of this old Greek merchant ship, it's been waiting around 2,400 years. This shipwreck, recently uncovered over a mile below the Black Sea surface, is officially the oldest intact shipwreck ever discovered. It was found by the Black Sea Maritime Archaeology Project, who have been surveying the land below the water with specialist equipment for some time. The wreck is so well preserved that it's taught experts plenty about how ancient ships were constructed, revealing twin rudders, rowing benches, and a more sophisticated mast design than they were expecting. Our ancestors may have been more advanced than we thought. Forget everything you think you know about bread. It's generally thought that humans invented both bread and beer at around the dawn of the agricultural age, 10,000 years ago. We now know it's been going on much longer. 2 stone fireplaces were recently discovered at a site within the Black Desert of Jordan, believed to have been a campsite for hunter-gatherers. Researchers studied the contents of the fireplace and found traces of a rudimentary unleavened bread based on wild cereal and tubers. The site dates back at least 14,000 years. On top of that, research on some stone monuments belonging to another Natufian tribe and found 150 miles west of the original site indicated traces of wheat and barley. The Natufians were eating bread and drinking beer thousands of years before anybody else. The first rule of Ninja Club is that you don't talk about Ninja Club. That's the basic message of a 300-year-old oath that was recently uncovered among a stash of documents given to a Japanese university in the late 16th century. The documents had been stored but never cataloged or studied before. The oath is signed by a ninja named Inosuke Kizu, thanking his ninjutsu master for his training and promising never to divulge the secrets of the martial art for fear of retribution by 60 gods for generations. Given that we've only found the document now, he kept his promise. The rest of the documents constitute what amounts to a guide on how to become a ninja the ancient way. They're all now available online if you want to try training yourself. You never really know what you might find with a metal detector. On a lucky day, you might change history completely. Detectorist Mike Smith was out in Wales one day in 2018 when he came across a Celtic burial chariot hidden within the earth. The excited amateur informed experts about what he'd found immediately, but was told that he must be wrong, because Celtic burials had never taken place in that area. Nevertheless, the professionals came to take a look, and were astonished when they uncovered a full-sized Iron Age settlement buried underground, full of Celtic artifacts. Previously, it was believed that the Celts occupied Ireland, Scotland, and some of northern England, but never came as far south as Wales. We can now say for sure that they spread farther than we thought. 2018 was a great year for discoveries. We also found the ancient lost Trojan city of Tenea, which was built from the ground up by prisoners. It's a relic of the enormous historical Trojan conflict, which started when Helen, wife of the king of Sparta, got into a disagreement with Paris of Troy. The site is located within what is now Turkey. Tenea was built by those who became prisoners of the conflict, but looks to have become an affluent trading town over time. That's based on the significant amount of Roman coins that have been found there, as well as fine pottery and gaming dies, which are indicators of a lively market town. The city is believed to have been active from the 4th century BC until towards the end of the Roman Empire, but was slowly abandoned as the Romans moved on to Greece after Troy fell. Stonehenge now has competition as the most mysterious ancient monument in Britain. 20 miles away from the famous site is another, larger circle. It was first noticed around 30 years ago and was thought to date back to the same era as Stonehenge, but recent improvements to carbon dating processes have been able to prove that it's actually 800 years older, dating back to around 3300 BC. The remains of the circles are still visible, along with much of the thick wood, which would be set on fire to create a vast burning circle. Experts believe it may have had a ritual use, although nobody can say for sure. The Jiahu archaeological site in China has already provided us with a lot of evidence about early human civilization. But in 2017, it excelled itself. The Neolithic site gave up weaving tools, bone needles, and silk proteins. In short, it provided evidence that silk weaving took place at the site some 8,500 years ago, a time when it was thought humans still largely wore clothes made from flax fibers. Silk weaving was thought to have begun 5,000 years ago at most, but that was clearly wrong. Legend has always said that silk trading began at Jiahu. The site is on the legendary Silk Road trading route that defined the world's commerce thousands of years ago. Jiahu is also where the world's oldest playable musical instrument was discovered. It's a window into a time long since gone. The Inuit have been hunting bears since the dawn of civilization. They passed the traditions and stories of bear hunting down to each other in the form of story and legend, from one generation to the next. One of those stories concerned the king bear, a gigantic beast comparable to Bigfoot in Western legends. It was thought to be a charming tale, but nothing more until now. A 1,300-year-old bear skull has emerged from the ice of Alaska, and it's larger than any bear skull ever found before. It's also bigger than any species of living bear. This might be consistent with the Inuit king bear, said to be 12 feet long and narrow-bodied, moving with great pace and speed. Vast parts of the Arctic have never been explored. Could they still be out there? Sometimes, you spend years searching for a lost Roman city, and then find it by accident. We knew that Usitia existed because it's referred to by name in many ancient Roman texts, but nobody could find any physical evidence of where it once stood. Then an archaeological survey needed to be carried out in southern France before a school could be built on a proposed site. And the lost city was found by chance. Researchers descended on the site en masse and found that Usitia was occupied from 100 BC to around 700 AD, although it seems to have stood empty from the year 200 to the year 300, with no obvious reason why. A series of astonishing mosaics depicting animals are the highlight of the discoveries so far. These were common Roman decorations, but didn't become common until around 200 years after the time of Usitia. It would seem that it was a city ahead of its time. 0 is a number we take for granted nowadays. It just means the absence of something. But the discovery of the concept 0 is one of the greatest mathematical breakthroughs in human history. It created a symbol for nothing and changed the way we calculate. As it turns out, that happened earlier than we thought it did. Fresh radiocarbon dating of the Indian Bashkali manuscript, which has been in the UK since 1902 and is full of zeros, has dated to around the year 300, about 500 years earlier than previously believed. Although other cultures have their own symbols to indicate nothingness, the appearance of 0 as a dot on the manuscript is the beginning of the 0 symbol we all recognize today. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and you will be the first to know when a new video comes out. Thank you for watching, and see you soon!